Hey everybody, Jonathan Wells here, and I am super honored to be with Nia Llorens today, who's a real estate agent in the Chicago market. We're going to be talking about how to purchase your first home, or it could even be a move-up purchase. But this is our home buyers workshop where we give you some insights to what's happening currently in the market right now and how you can best prepare yourself, for your upcoming move. So. Nia,
So,
would you mind introducing yourself here?
hi everyone. I'm Nia. I'm a real estate agent serving the south suburbs of Chicago. I started my journey in March 2024, and I'm really dedicated to helping first time home buyers find their perfect place, and it's kind of what drives me. And yeah, I'm excited to share some insights today with Jonathan.
Absolutely. Love that. So, who this video is for is really going to be anybody that, you're coming into contact with that's interested in purchasing a home in the future. Maybe you're
Right,
looking at, 3 weeks out, 3 months out, or 3 years out, right? Like
right.
anyone that, is thinking about making that next move, we're going to be giving them some good information here today that, again, they can use right now and in the future as well.
Awesome.
Um, and there will be a free, I'll give you guys how to, get all this together here at the end. There will be a free, like code for any of, the people that are watching this video to use. And you'll get 500 bucks off of your closing costs when you use this code.
Yep.
That way, you're able to make home ownership just that much more affordable for yourself in the future. So
Awesome.
stick around
Yeah,
till that
really
for sure.
exciting.
Absolutely. So, Nia, give us a bit of like the home buying timeline overview. From
Okay.
what you've seen from your clients, in case somebody's wondering, like, how long does this process really take?
Yeah, I would say the first thing, when you're thinking about purchasing a home, when you're in that process, is getting a pre-approval and connecting with a good lender. I think that's kind of a good starting point because you want to know exactly where your approval is, what your price range looks like, what your monthly payments might entail. I think that's really important for a lot of people just to have a realistic viewpoint of where they should be looking. And as far as timeline, I would say the pre, buying timeline is a couple weeks of just, discovery, getting information together, getting approved, kind of scoping out the areas that you're looking to purchase in and kind of get a feel for the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So, how do you and I typically work together to make sure that that buyer is going to be, prepared and competitive when it comes to, the
Mhm.
homeownership process?
Yeah, so we kind of work hand in hand from day one. Once you're pre-approved, we can sit down and kind of understand like what your wants, your needs, and priorities are in purchasing a home. I'll
Mhm.
use that information to find good searches in the area that you're looking for and kind of send you different properties that you were interested in. And with you, Jonathan, because you're available to kind of run numbers on properties to give me an idea of what the cost would be and what to expect.
Mhm.
That helps because we're not running around chasing our tail trying to get this information when you're interested in actually putting in an offer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And just to say one thing on that too, I think that like, that preparation period, a lot of
Hmm.
people skip that,
Right. And they just jump right
and
in.
exactly, right? They see a house they want to look at. They have to rush to get that pre-approval together. Then they have to rush to submit the offer, and then they're rushing from the start to the finish of the deal. And it just really doesn't give people a lot of time to slow down, breathe, and actually like look into things. Um,
Right.
and so, giving yourself that time to really prepare and know what you're doing is going to prevent you from making a lot of mistakes for sure.
Yeah, help you make a really educated, well thought out decision versus just jumping on something because it's available for sure.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Perfect. Yeah, for sure. So, what should a buyer expect from the time that they say, I'm ready to go get my stuff together and get my pre-approval and start looking at homes, till when they actually get the keys?
I would say, it's really an exciting journey. First, we get you connected, obviously, for the pre approval. Once we have that, we're kind of house hunting. We're going to set up some showings of potential homes, look at the area that you were interested in looking at trying to find the one. Once we find the one, we would create, a strong offer. After acceptance, we move into contract phase, inspections, and appraisal. You would handle the loan processing, and I'd handle all the negotiation and paperwork. Then we get to the closing table where you sign the papers and you get to be a homeowner. So that's kind of
Yeah.
the timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that like, from an actual if you're looking at like how many days or weeks does this blend into,
Hmm.
a lot of clients ask me that question too.
It
And
varies.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say it really does vary. It's
Hmm.
completely dependent upon the each individual applicant. Like I've had people that have hit me up. They wanted to look at a house. They put an offer in. They closed 3 weeks later. So the whole process
Hmm.
was 30 days. And then I've
Right.
had other clients that it took them, 2 years to get their pre-approval together because they had to fix some items in their credit. And then
Right.
they, were looking at homes for 6 months before they finally closed on one.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely dependent on the individual client, the market in which they're looking to purchase, and just their, specific situation, how inspections go, appraisal, and all that too. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So I'm going to take a second here to kind of go through the lending, process and the financial basics.
Okay.
So a lot of things that, home buyers come to me with questions on is, one, they want to know how much they can afford.
Right.
So very simply, what that looks like is take your annual income, before taxes. So if you're salaried, let's say $80,000 a year, and multiply that income by three. So the example for that would be like $240,000, right?
Right.
That's typically how much you're going to be approved for, like to actually mortgage.
Hmm.
So if your mortgage is 240, your purchase price is probably 250 to 260,
Hmm.
depending on your down payment. And then if you're putting down more, then obviously that number goes up. Um, that's
Right.
not like always accurate though, because a lot of times people can afford more than three times their annual income.
Hmm.
But about three times is where it's going to feel like it's,
Most
you're getting
comfortable.
enough home. Exactly.
Right.
You're getting enough home, but you're not over leveraging yourself.
Exactly. And that's important.
100%. Yeah. And if
Yeah.
somebody has like, let's say they've got two credit cards and they don't carry a balance and they have no car loan and it's really just like those two items plus whatever else their living expenses are, they can afford to pay a little bit more, right? Like they can
Right.
buy a nicer house because they don't have any other debt. Um,
Right.
and so it's all situational, but yeah, I would say three times your income to three and a half. That's really
Hmm.
that sweet spot for a lot of people.
Right. Definitely is.
And then they all want to know like, okay, what's a good enough credit score to qualify? And, again, what's the timeline for the pre-approval process?
Hmm.
So very simply, like the credit score that you need, like you'll see online and everything that you can purchase with as low as a 580 credit score. You
Hmm.
absolutely can. I've actually closed clients that have had lower than 580 credit scores.
Oh wow.
Um, Most recently, I had a client that we approved the deal and closed it, and I think their credit score was like a 539.
Hmm.
And that was earlier this year.
Okay.
Now, anytime that you're under like the 640 level for credit, you
Hmm.
are going to be required to put down more money and you're going to be required to have more money on the sidelines, as reserves, for you
Right.
to make your first couple of housing payments.
Hmm.
So think of it like a tripod, like the one that this camera's on right now.
Right.
You can't, if you've got one leg that's like halfway broken or a little wobbly, it's
Hmm.
not the end of the world typically if the other two legs are strong. But if you've got two legs that are wobbly, then you're going to be in some trouble, right? And those
Exactly.
three legs are going to be the cash that you have to put down or keep behind yourself for those reserves, the credit score and the repayment history that you have, and then your income, right? Like those are the
Right.
three legs that you're really dealing with as an applicant.
Hmm.
And you want to make sure that at least two of those three are really strong. And then if all three are strong, that's great. um, but if you have at least two out of the three, you're going to be in a good spot.
Exactly. Exactly. I like that analogy.
For sure. And then when
Awesome.
it comes to like the pre-approval process,
Mhm.
so how it works very simply is as an applicant, you're going to submit, your client questionnaire, and you're typically going to talk to myself or John. So John and John, right? But you're going to talk to one of us to get scheduled, right? So it
Mhm.
just depends. Like, I have agents that will send my phone number to clients, or I've got agents that will send me the client's phone numbers. So,
Right.
I like if I'm in a meeting or whatever, like John on my team will call that person back and we'll make sure that he gets them in my calendar for like within typically 48 hours, they're going to be in my calendar. And then, also make sure that they have the link to get everything processed, for their client questionnaire.
For
The
sure.
client questionnaire seems kind of scary because it's asking you a lot of questions about your income, where you work at, like all of that stuff. But it's really just for us to get a baseline of like your personal information, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so once we have that in, we know within 80% of what you're going to be able to get qualified for. The
Exactly.
rest of that 20% is what that meeting's for us to go through what you want to pay for your monthly payment, what you can bring for your cash to close, and then timelines and making sure we have the right loan program for you that fits the needs that you have. Um,
Exactly.
because while there's still like, there's like three or four different like loan types that you can really fall into, there's a million different subsets of those options, and no two applicants are going to be the same, so we want to give personalized advice to those individual clients. And
Right.
so then that's why we have that home loan consultation, is for us to really dive in and know exactly what's going to move the needle for you as an individual and help you build wealth over time. So
Right. Tailor it to the client's needs for sure.
exactly. And so, can you actually share a story? Or so before I go into that, to wrap
Mhm.
up with the pre-approval,
Yeah.
uh, it takes the client 15 minutes to fill out the questionnaire, and then
Mhm.
depending on the type of income and application we have from that person, we may need 5 different docs, or we may need 15 different docs for us to actually be able to put together that pre-approval. So, things like pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns if you're self-employed,
Right.
rental income analysis if you own rental properties. Like, there's a lot of different things that we could need. So just
Mhm.
getting that client questionnaire done early helps us be able to structure that and request those items from you. And then once you get those items back to us, we'll have those reviewed and update your pre-approval within 24 hours.
Wow.
So
That's
a
a good
lot of
timeline.
time, 100%, yeah. So like,
Right.
I have clients that they started the pre-approval process 3 weeks ago, and they still haven't gotten us the rest of their docs to finalize everything, and so it's taking 3 weeks.
Mhm.
But then I had clients that, got us their docs day one, and we turned around that pre-approval. So from the initial conversation when they first came in and got referred to us till them leaving with the pre-approval was 48 hours,
Right.
Um,
That
and I'll
was
do pre-approvals
amazing.
in 30 minutes if we need, right? Like it
Right.
just depends on how willing the client is, as an individual to get us the information that we need to do our jobs. So,
Definitely.
uh,
Definitely.
for sure. So,
Awesome.
Nia, can you share a story where, a client benefited from a strategy that we used together, like maybe a down
Mhm.
payment assistance type program or some kind of a
Mhm.
buy down? Like, give us an
Sure.
example.
Yeah, so I know a couple months ago we were able to utilize that on my own purchase when we were doing
Mhm.
the Smart Buy program. That was a program that was around back in February where they covered, I think it was the down payment plus covered some of the student loan payments, made it possible to basically bring less to the closing table and also make it more feasible for clients to buy a home. A lot of clients aren't able to come out of pocket with a significant amount of money at the closing table, so it definitely bridges that gap for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, unfortunately, the funds have dried up for that specific program
Right, I
as
heard.
of this year. And I don't know if they've released if they're going to rerun this same program next year.
Mhm.
But what is exciting is that there's, every time that a down payment assistance program kind of goes away, there's a new one that comes back, right?
Right, to
Um,
take its
and
place, yeah.
exactly. So there's always going to be a way for a client to be able to get, some sort of, whether it's down payment assistance, help with other types of debt payoff or something like that. There's
Mhm,
always going to be a program out there to help, home buyers that are looking to make that first purchase. Um,
exactly,
and so it's
and
our
that
job to stay educated, on what's available so we can give that information to our clients when we're, having these conversations.
for sure. Yeah, definitely give them all their options and kinda show them that it's a feasible goal, for sure.
Absolutely. Let's see. So, what is the difference between like being pre-qualified versus fully pre-approved?
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would say with the pre-qualification process, it's more informal.
Mhm,
Um, it's kind of just getting some basic information based off of a conversation to kind of have a rough idea of your financial picture.
mhm,
The pre-approval is more thorough, where you're kind of verifying, income, assets, credits. It's like basically a conditional commitment from your
mhm.
lender, kind of detailing what they think would be your estimated amount that you are able to purchase and what your options are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Couldn't have said it better myself, for sure.
Mhm.
So, a lot of times, like, I had a client that, I'm attempting to get documentation from to finalize his pre-approval, but
Yeah.
so he got a pre-qualification from USAA, and, they just all they did was talk to him on the phone. I don't even know if he submitted any information. I think he banks with them, and they just said, "Yep, you're, like, pre-screened, like, we'll
Right.
approve you for, a $200,000 purchase," or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
So, in reality, he doesn't know what he's actually gonna be pre-approved for, and he
Mhm.
also doesn't know what that monthly payment's gonna be.
Right.
Um and so that's why, like, I do ask for more things, and this particular client was a little frustrated in the documentation we were asking for him. But the reason why we do that is to make sure that we're not gambling that client's money. And what I
Right.
mean by that is, like, when you're purchasing a home, you're going to put down a deposit when you sign the contract.
Mhm.
And that deposit's negotiable, but it's typically about 1% of that sales price, and it could be more, depending on different circumstances. So if you're buying a $300,000 home, you're going to be putting down at least $3,000
Mm.
for that deposit in most cases. And so with that deposit, if you don't perform as a borrower and you can't close on that house because your loan gets denied, in a lot of cases, you'll still lose that money.
Right.
Um, and so, while I enjoy the occasional sports bet myself during football season, I
Mhm.
don't wanna, gamble with, my clients' money because that's real cash that they, that's theirs, right?
Right,
Um
exactly.
and so the reason why and so going back to that point, like, I wanna know to a T that we have this completely set up and there's not gonna be any surprises. Because
Yeah.
even though it's a little bit more cumbersome in the beginning, it just prevents us from having a lot of issues in the middle and the end, and that's
Mhm.
when you really wanna be, thinking about other things past the transaction. You wanna be thinking about what colors are you gonna paint the living room, or what are you gonna
Right.
do with the kitchen? Who's gonna be getting which bedroom? Like, making sure you schedule movers and stuff. Like, those are the things that you need to be worrying about, not,
Mhm.
"Oh my god, am I actually gonna be a homeowner, or am I not gonna close on this house at all?" You know?
Right. Kinda give you a little bit more of a feeling of security and being able to move forward and not worried about the checking, all the boxes in the process when
Yeah,
you're really thorough in the beginning. That makes sense.
absolutely, absolutely. So if you're not sure what you're gonna qualify for, that's why we're here, right? So, I've got a
Right.
free, like, 10 it's like the questionnaire is like 5 to 10 minutes long if you speed through it.
Mhm.
And so you can like, there'll be a link for that you can fill out, and it'll automatically direct you to my booking link, for you to schedule a time for us to chat as well. So if
Mhm.
you have questions, you're not sure what you're gonna qualify for, that's a really great place to start for sure.
Definitely a good resource.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about like real estate strategy, and the market tips.
Okay.
Um, so what advice would you give a buyer in today's market?
I would say in today's market, I would definitely recommend to be patient but decisive. The right home will come along, but when it does, you want to be able to act quickly, but also, focus on what you need versus just the, arbitrary like wish list, kind of just looking at it as a full purchase and the way it will impact your life. Be open to homes that might need, cosmetic love or might need, extra, help along the way. It might end up being a better investment for you in the long term.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
What are some things that you've done to help buyers win in a competitive offer situation?
Yeah. So I have definitely focused on kind of crafting like a compelling offer based on, the seller's motivation, talking about closing dates, building a good rapport with like the listing agent, kind of just making sure that that offer definitely has a good basis as far as we have a good pre-approval, solid funding for the client, and I feel
Mhm.
like that definitely offers, you know, an edge, and definitely strategy and clear communication go a long way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I love that.
Mhm.
Uh, and then what's your process for helping your clients feel confident about their home purchase?
Kind of just being very open with my clients, talking to them through the process, establishing that rapport, and figuring out what their needs are because this is the biggest thing they'll probably do in their lives. So, kind of just a lot of answering questions, education, kind of working through, the area they want to live in, looking, doing a CMA for the homes that they're interested. I have a good attorney that's on my team that I work with. That she's awesome, and she kind of guides them on her own end as far as the legal sphere of what they're doing, and kind of just keeping them informed and empowered with that knowledge. And I think that goes a really long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the clients that we've worked with together, like I really do think that we both just have that heart of a teacher where we're able to educate our clients.
Right,
And that way, we're never selling them or pushing them into a specific property or a loan program.
right,
We're really getting, finding out what their needs are and where they're at as an individual, and then
right.
showing them these are the different options that you have, and these are the pros and cons of each one. And it
Mhm.
allows that borrower or that, client to make an informed decision. So love
Right.
that.
Educated, informed decisions all the way, for sure.
Absolutely. So what are like, a few of the red flags or mistakes, that you've seen people make while they're in the process of buying a home?
Um, Falling in love with homes that they're not exactly within budget. A lot of times
Mhm,
people wanna look at homes before they're even at the point of a pre-approval, and they kind of
mhm.
have this idea of what they'd like. And, in the loan process, a big one I've seen as well is just making large purchases or opening lines of credit while they're trying to get approved for their loan, things
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
That can definitely, throw things off in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the biggest one is, like you said, new lines of credit, and then, believe it or not, I've seen people get a pre-approval and then they miss payments on their credit report. So,
W Which
definitely
is
make sure
crazy.
you're still making your payments and you're,
Right,
not opening up any new debt because we have to verify all of those things before closing, and it makes it a big deal, at that point, um,
exactly.
for sure. So, well, yeah, we'll wrap up here with like can we get started, right? Like let's say, somebody's watching this video right now and, they've heard all the information, they understand, everything, but what are the real next steps? What can somebody do today to move that needle in their life?
First step is getting pre-approved. I think that is the best possible next step because that way they have an idea of what exactly they're able to, um, qualify for, and then they have, someone on their side that is very educated on the process, and then they can move forward with confidence. Definitely.
I love
Yeah.
that. Awesome. And for everyone that stuck around to the end of the video, I'm gonna put the discount code like somewhere on the screen here in
Okay,
post
awesome.
editing. But email me. My email will be on here. It is johnwells@leader1.com. And that'll also be, listed up here somewhere. And the
Okay,
code is going to be NIA. So NIA. Send me that code, email me that code. We'll get you everything to get started on the process, and we'll automatically apply a discount, of $500 towards your closing costs. And then let's say that you have a family member that is also talking about purchasing a home, and they don't have to have a similar timeline. They might be purchasing, a year or so from now, right?
right.
If you, mention them, at our consultation, you bring up their name, we're able to get connected to them and have them, send them the link as well for everything. We will also apply an additional $250 off of your closing costs. and we'll give
Awesome.
them the same deal of the 500 plus the extra 250 as well. So it's a
That's
really good
great.
way for you guys to, be able to capitalize on, helping your family members find the right people to work with, and also getting a discount for that as well. So
Awesome. Well, that's
absolutely.
amazing. I'm sure we'll be hearing from a lot.
Absolutely, for sure. So, oh, look, the lights just flipped off. So,
Alright.
without further ado, they're telling me to get out of here. But thank you guys so much for everything. Nia, thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, thank you for
And
taking the time. I really appreciate it.
absolutely cannot wait to continue working with you. So,
Awesome.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.